What is up, you guys? I'm Charmx. Today I'm going to be reacting to Film Theory Pixar's Up. How many balloons does it take to lift a house by the film theorists? Now this is extremely intriguing to me because I've always kind of wanted to know how many balloons would it take. Like I've seen someone did something where they took a bunch of balloons, they tied it to a lawn chair, and then they themselves sat in said lawn chair, and then they went up, and then I think they got fined a whole bunch of money because that's illegal to do that. So, you know, it's possible to do it with a person, but how many balloons to lift a house? I don't know, but I think with the person, it was like maybe 50 balloons or something. So that's already, and they're not small balloons, they're pretty big, right? So, anyway, this is going to be very interesting to me. Hopefully you guys like this. Without any further ado, let's begin.
Magician and overall, nobody asked you to do that stunt artist, David Blaine recently made headlines when he used balloons to lift himself nearly
Oh, I heard he did something like this.
5 miles above the Arizona desert before skydiving back down to Earth. Sure, that's a daring and...
That's not really a magic act, though. It's just kind of like a stunt. Like a daredevil kind of stunt.
Cool stunt, I suppose, but people comparing it to the movie Up are getting a little carried away, if you ask me. I mean, if he really wanted to do the Up trick properly, he would have landed from that skydive and then revealed that he had a Boy Scout with him the entire time. Now that is a trick.
That'd be weird. That'd be very weird.
Hello, Internet.
Welcome to Film Theory,
the show that helps your knowledge of movies and TV soar to new heights before bursting your balloons by ruining your favorite franchises. I can't help it. I'm like life's pointy little needle of sadness.
It's a weird way to describe yourself, but okay. You know, I think in life it matters a lot how you see yourself, and Matt sees himself as a needle of sadness. I don't know what that says about you, but okay.
Let's ignore that ominous foreshadowing for a moment, though, and consider the majesty of Pixar. With almost no new movies coming out in 2020, I've had a fantastic opportunity to revisit some old classics. No, not the bygone classics from the golden...
I guess that's a good, thing for 2020 is that you can catch up on all the movies you haven't seen.
An age of film, or underappreciated futuristic anime, or even obscure French documentaries about potato picking. Ah, le glaneur et la glanus, you will always remain in my watch later playlist. Nope, I've been watching old Pixar movies. I haven't exactly kept my love of Pixar a secret on this channel, but sometimes it can be tricky to talk about their movies. I've actually wanted to make a theory about Up for a long time, but every time I start to watch the movie, I get so dehydrated from weeping after that first 10 minutes that I have to stop.
It's not that. I mean, it is a bit sad, obviously, but it's not that sad. Maybe I'm just really cold-hearted. I don't know, but I don't like. It's a bit sad, obviously, but I don't think it's worth bawling over.
I've never made it past those first 10 minutes either. Let me, spoiler alert, summarize the movie so we can get on with today's theory, shall we? In Up, an old man named Carl uses balloons to fly his and his late wife's house to their dream adventure destination of Paradise Falls in South America, along with an annoying Boy Scout and a talking dog. Wow, it is a remarkably easy movie to summarize. Now, the obvious theory about Up is about whether you can actually make a house fly with balloons. And while a number of videos have attempted to answer this, even going so far as to build a miniature of Carl's house and fly it,
What? That's amazing. I didn't know they did that. National Geographic, of course. That's crazy. But look how many balloons are there.
I've never been satisfied with the answer, or the methodology, or the math that's been used, and I've also been left unsatisfied when everyone fails to answer the other obvious question here. Even if you do manage to get the house in the air, is there any
How do you fly it? Like, move it to the direction you want?
Chance that it could possibly make it to another continent? I guess when you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. And that, my friends, is the plan for today's theory. So, my friends, strap in like David Blaine, because today we're going up, and away. The first question that we have to dig...
Well, now, was David Blaine holding himself with his hands? Or was he, like... I didn't watch it, I don't know. Or was he, like, strapped on and something, like... something was grabbing it for him, Does that make sense? You'd have to have a crazy grip strength to hold on for that long with just your hands.
Dig into is the obvious...
That would be a magic trick if it was just his hands.
One, whether Carl could actually have floated his house using balloons as we see in the movie. And I recognize that I am far from the first person to actually try to answer this. David Blaine demonstrated that you can do it with a person, and the National Geographic show How Hard Can It Be proved that you could do it with a house. So I gotta say the house that they built was more of a house-shaped box than something that people could actually live in, which is gonna come with a lot of stuff that's gonna weigh the whole
Yeah, houses weigh a lot. That looks like a almost like just like a garden shed almost.
Project down. The theoretical physics behind it isn't all that complicated. Since helium is lighter than air, a balloon creates a small lifting force. And if you get enough helium in enough balloons, yeah, you could theoretically lift anything. A house, a yacht, even the Statue of Liberty. The real question is how many balloons you'd need, and that one requires a bit more work. I've seen...
Basically, you have to find out how much weight each balloon can lift, and then you find out the weight of a house, and then, you know, you kind of do the math there, and it'll tell you, oh, you need X amount of balloons to lift the weight of this house. It's not really that complicated.
Estimates of this figure online ranging from Wired's claim that the job would be done in about 100,000 balloons to the director of Up, Pete Docter, saying that the figure they arrived at was somewhere in the vicinity of 23.5 million balloons. A bit of a difference. There's a, you know...
I think I'm going to lean towards more of the 100,000 balloons. 23 million. Yeah, I don't think that. Well, obviously that would work. But I don't think, I think that's a little bit too much.
Oh, margin of error. Nice try there, guys, but here on Film Theory, you only get partial credit if you don't show your work. So I wanted to do the math for myself, along with a bit of testing from our pal Austin over on the Science on Game Theory. First question, how much does Carl's house weigh? There are actually a lot of considerations depending on the materials that you use to make the house, but generally speaking, older houses are made from heavier materials. Carl and Ellie renovate a house known as a Queen Anne style house, which are what you'd think of as your classic Victorian houses.
I didn't know that's what they were called. I thought Matt was just going to get the average weight of a house in America and then just use that for the math.
Think high-pitched roofs, tower structures or bay windows, and porches with ornate lattice work called gingerbread trim. We can also see that Carl's house has a heavy slate roof. That's why you're getting that scalloped pattern up there on the top of the building. This house was probably built in the early 20th century at the latest.
Was that like 1700 or something?
That was falling apart when Carl and Ellie meet in it in 1939. According to one construction company, a good estimate for the weight of a two-story house like Carl's is 275 pounds per square foot, though we have to subtract the weight of the house's foundation from that because when the house lifts up, you don't see the foundation coming with it. Luckily, the
And the foundation weighs the most, I believe, because it's mostly just... At least nowadays, foundation is mostly concrete. So, you know, that's a lot of weight taken off.
House now exists. A replica was actually built in the suburbs of Salt Lake City, Utah, and covers 2,800 square feet. So
why did they choose such a bad paint? Look at the paint job on it. It looks horrible. Look, it looks all faded and nasty.
Even if we imagine it having a heavy foundation of 200,000 pounds or 91,000 kilograms, we've still got ourselves a weight of 570,000 pounds. 206.
What? Why so much? I thought it would be like maybe 100,000 pounds. Okay, by that logic, the 100,000 balloons is not going to work. You're going to need at least, like for every pound, you're probably going to need at least maybe 4 or 5 balloons to lift a pound, I think. Something like that. So if it's 1,000,000 pounds that you're lifting, that's what? Like, I can't do the math right now, like 3 million balloons. So maybe the guy who said 20 million, he might be a little bit more accurate.
60,000 kilograms that we need to lift using nothing but balloons. So as you can imagine, we're gonna need a lot of balloons. So that leads us to our second question. How much weight can a helium balloon lift? Obviously, this question depends on the kind of balloon. Both Mr. Street Magic and the people of National Geographic opted for big meteorological balloons. But if we want to
Did it really take this many balloons to lift him up, though? Like, that's a ton. Or, you know, that's a lot more than I thought it would take to lift him up.
Create up, we're talking
maybe he just weighs a lot. Has David Blaine been bulking?
Talking about latex, party city, rub it on your head and stick it to the wall kind of balloons. On average, one of these balloons can fit about 9 liters of helium in it, which should have the ability to lift about 11 grams of mass. We also have to start subtracting the weight of the non-house things that the helium is also lifting. The balloon itself weighs about 2 grams. And if we imagine Carl using very thin fishing line for the strings, which I chose because the ribbon that you get on party balloons would actually be too heavy at the lengths that Carl needs, that's going to add about another 0.7 grams for a 50-foot length of string. Thus, each balloon has the ability to lift about 8.3 grams.
How many grams are in a pound? I don't know. I don't remember going over that in school. I don't remember a lot from school, though, so maybe we did. I don't know.
If we're not accounting for any other outward forces like the friction of the balloons rubbing together, converting the total weight of the house from 570,000 pounds to about 258,547,651 grams, we get that Carl is gonna need a grand total of 31 million.
Wow, 31 million balloons. So the other guy was actually right by his math.
100.
Well, not even right. He was wrong. He was off by like 10 million.
150,319 balloons to get that house off the ground. Having trouble envisioning what that number of balloons would look like? Well, here's some footage from Balloon Fest, which happened in Cleveland, Ohio, just a couple of miles from where I was born, 2 months from before I was born, in September of 1986, in an attempt to break the Guinness World Record for the most balloons released at one time.
Wow, that's definitely not going to be an environmental disaster. Oh my goodness. I wonder how many birds choked on those. Frig me.
What you're seeing in that news coverage right there is 1.5 million helium balloons. So
it's legit almost like 20 something times this amount.
Carl's house would need that times 20, probably blocking out the sun in the process. Also, did Cleveland's Balloon Fest have as nice of an ending as Up? Nope, Guinness refused to recognize it as a world record, and the balloons hampered a search and rescue mission for 2 lost fishermen who wound up dead. Classic Cleveland pulling a Cleveland.
Frig me, man.
Such a Cleveland move. I love you guys. We originated the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the ability to set rivers on fire because they're so polluted. I'm originally from Cleveland, so I'm allowed to make that joke, but Cleveland is like the double Baltic of cities. I love you, Cleveland, so much. Okay, so theoretically, you can live.
So they released 1 point something million. Why would they not get the record for releasing it? It's on film. We see it. It's not like it was faked. I mean, at the least, they deserve the record.
Lift your house into the sky if you have 30 million spare balloons lying around. But that still doesn't confirm the events of the film, because we have to answer our other major question here. Could Carl really fly the house to Paradise Falls? Unfortunately, when you have 30 million balloons attached to your house, shower curtain isn't going to be super effective at steering it. It's like trying to steer your car by sticking your arm out the window. So Carl is going to be at the mercy of wind patterns. But there is some indication that the wind might actually...
Yeah, I guess it depends where he lives. The wind, I know there's wind currents around, right? So maybe a certain wind, if he were to go up really high, wind currents would take him to Africa. I don't know.
End up blowing Carl's house toward Paradise Falls. Paradise Falls as a location doesn't really exist in real life, but it's based on Venezuela's Angel Falls. It's unclear where in the United States Carl is from, but from anywhere in the lower 48, he's gonna be needing to be blown south and east. The eastern direction for weather is pretty typical. North of 30 degrees latitude, which is pretty much all of America, the predominant wind pattern is the subtropical jet stream, which blows from west to east opposite the direction that the Earth is spinning. In order to go south,
it's close, but no cigar.
The house needs to get caught up in what's called a Hadley cell, which is a rotating mass of air that occurs between the equator and about 30 degrees latitude. Air from the equator heats up, rises high in the atmosphere, and moves towards the poles, at which point the air cools down, sinks, and moves back toward the equator. It's certainly...
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that. Look at this. You learn more in Matt's videos than you do in school, folks. This is why you should watch Matt Pat videos.
Lucky for Carl's house to end up around Paradise Falls, but when you look at the weather patterns, it's not impossible. And if you think it's impossible for helium balloons to travel that kind of distance, there's actually anecdotal evidence to suggest otherwise. In 2013,
they can go a long time without losing before they go flat.
British student released helium balloons with letters attached to them into the sky, only to have one recovered in Australia over 10,000 miles away. So who knows? Maybe that thunder...
It's a long way.
Carl's house right into the Hadley cell it needed to land it right at Paradise Falls' feet. Should have just stuck with what the script said in that moment instead of trying to spin it off into what I thought I was gonna say, and then it didn't make a whole lot of sense because waterfalls don't have feet, and he doesn't wind up at the feet of the falls, he winds up at the top of the falls. It's stupid! It was a stupid attempt at ad-libbing. So...
Well, at least you tried, You get a participation trophy for that, I guess.
Yes, you can lift a house with balloons, and those balloons can fly halfway across the world. Does that mean that...
But will he end up in the exact position he wants to? Nah. I mean, he might end up in near the location, judging if he gets into the wind pattern or whatever it's called. But is it going to land him right where he wants to go? No. Especially because there's no control over it.
Carl's planet up is actually kinda, when you squint at it, plausible. Well, there's one final teensy-tiny little problem. You
There's the part where Matt ruins it.
know what's really gonna stand in Carl's way, beyond depleting the world's supply of latex and helium, and
The government's seeing this massive thing floating across their borders and then trying to shoot it down, probably.
having to get tremendously lucky with weather patterns? The cost. See, we know from Carl and Ellie's montage at the beginning of the movie that they're not exactly rolling in the dough. They have to break that jug of change over and over and over again to make ends meet, and even just thinking about it's getting me to tear up. Suck it up, Matt, you have to talk about brutal cold science. But it's not like either of them is sitting on a trust fund, and buying and filling up that many balloons is gonna get
30 million? If each balloon is like, I don't know, what is the cost of a balloon if you get them in bulk? Like 10 cents or something? That's still going to be 30, that's 300 million cents. Pretty sure that's over, pretty sure that's over the amount of money it would cost to retire.
a little expensive. Helium costs roughly $119
I didn't even think about the helium to go into it. Oh, that costs a lot. It costs a lot too.
per 1,000 cubic feet. Best price I can find on balloons works out to be a little less than 5 cents per balloon. Not
Oh, it's only 5 cents. Jackpot.
to mention the fact that we're going to be needing almost 300,000 miles of fishing line to hold all of them together. When you crunch all of those numbers, the cost for the 280
Even freaking Jeff Bezos couldn't afford to do this.
million liters of helium that you need is $1,178,170. The balloons themselves are going to cost you $1.5 million, and the fishing line ends up running you $2,388,191 for a grand total cost of $5,108,302. You can't put a price on a meaningful romantic gesture, but if it costs you $5.1 million,
He might as well just sold the house, I guess.
maybe look into buying some nearby real estate instead. And before any of my billionaire viewers out there get the idea that they could just do this themselves, consider the following. If it takes you 10 seconds to blow up and tie each of those balloons, you'd need to spend almost 10 years.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even think of the time. 10 years. Frig me. What if you're going to buy them already pre-blown?
Non-stop inflating balloons to pull off the stunt. Sorry to burst your balloon, but hey, that's just a theory.
A good theory, and it makes sense.
A film theory.
Well, that was, it makes sense. I can't, knock it. It makes sense. Obviously, lifting the house up or whatever and doing what he did is not going to work, unfortunately. But, yeah, anyway, whatever. I hope you guys like this. And I think I'd rate this theory out of a 10, probably an 8.5. I mean, or maybe even a 9. Let's do a 9 today. I mean, it makes sense. Matt did the math. It makes complete sense. And yeah, with that being said, if you're new, hit subscribe to join the family. Make sure you guys go subscribe to The Film Theorist. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time. Boop.